Hey everyone, welcome to the next episode of Partnerships in SaaS. I'm actually super fired up for today. Not that I'm ever not fired up, but extra so today because I have the famous Doug Davidoff on the show. Doug, welcome. Welcome.
It is a pleasure to be here, Barrett. You said it when we started. I feel like I'm full circle. I'm back with Barrett. That's what I called this meeting. Back with Barrett.
I'm into that. If for history's sake, it's important to note we've been working together in a variety of ways now for the better part of 6-7 years. It's been a long time.
Yeah, it's been a long time. I once we get past 2, I can't keep track of it anymore in terms of a number. But yeah, it's been multiple iterations. How about it was before HubSpot Sales Enterprise Hub actually worked? We go back to before that worked.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah, it's funny too because obviously the show for me is a chance to bring together folks across the partnerships landscape. So I'm talking to folks that are in marketing, that are in sales, that are owners of partnership, businesses, whether it's an agency like yours or a tech partnership. I'm talking to people in product. I'm kind of the full gambit in that sense. What I think is interesting about our conversation, what I'm excited about, is that because we have that history, there's a little bit of that color you're talking about. And so I ask every guest the first couple questions that we can kick off with today. Because frankly, I just want to have that conversation with everyone. I think it's interesting. The first thing I asked you was what your go-to-market superpower was, what you're most well known for. And you said business process design and matching the unmatchable. So do you want to keep that answer or do you want to change it? What do you think?
So I'm going to alter it just a teeny bit. What am I famous for? Wow, I don't know that I can actually say what I'm famous for. But what my superpower comes down to is pattern recognition with business acumen. And the matching the unmatchable is kind of the improv game where you throw things out and you pick things that are completely unrelated. We're able to, and we're going to get in this on the next one. Because of that, every time I see anything, it is both brand new and old at the same time. And so that mix allows us to create approaches that I think enable people to make progress where others won't.
See, that's interesting because you're talking about pattern recognition and more specifically using your experience over time. So throughout the duration of running, and actually, let's start off before we get into the process. I'm actually really interested to hear about it. Tell us about what you do. I think it's an important place to start to frame out our conversation. So what is it that Doug Davidoff does?
What is it that I do or what is it that my company does?
Yes.
Okay.
The straight answer. Yeah, both.
So we are at our core today. And we've gone through a lot of iterations, but at our core, we're a business process design, management, and optimization company, which means what do we get paid to do? We get paid to advise on structure, all the way through full out implementation. So we do a lot of big CRM implementations, re-implementations, fixes, sales process design, go to market strategy, the underlying execution pieces of that. But what makes it different is we take a very structural approach to it. And I think people have structure. I think a lot of people get structure and process wrong. And so that's where I saw you kind of laugh because you know me. The part where I think people get process wrong is they think of it as being linear and fixed. And that's why so much of sales and marketing doesn't really create that process. Process can be flexible, dynamic, iterative. It just has to be built into that, and it's still going to follow a structural flow that frees up creativity and productivity.
That's why I was actually not laughing. I was smiling because one of the things I remember you've always been very good at, and this is a little bit of a leading question, so forgive me, but it's process to the point you just made in terms of building structure and having intent around the way that you do things. So that question I'd asked you around your go-to-market superpower, when you said matching the unmatchable, and then when we described it today, it was much more around recognizing patterns, using your experience to be able to highlight specific ways that a business can improve their structure, their process, the things that you're really good at. I'm sure if I'm a listener right now and I'm at this stage of the conversation, I'm wondering, what are the tidbits you can share around that? What's the way that you built your process? Any insight you can share around the framework that you're utilizing today to be effective in the way that you deliver value to customers, or just frankly, how you've been able to develop the business to the state that you have would be super interesting to hear more about.
Well, that was definitely the question you should have given me in advance. Holy moly. So candidly, I don't know is part of the answer. right?
Interesting.
So there is an element of, it's both controlling and surfing at the same time. And I think that there's this idea, we start talking about scale, we talk about process and structure, and, make the business independent, like all those things come about. And we almost get like overly purposeful. Like, Steve Jobs, I think, said it best. He said, the dots in your life connect, but they only connect from behind. And so if you're trying to figure it out too much, and everyone loves to give you the pattern of, oh, well, here's what I did. Here was the secret. And that's always telling the story after the fact. So I think to some degree, I've just never been afraid to make mistakes. Probably because I was ADHD before ADHD was cool, misfit toy when I was young, didn't fit anywhere. So I just kind of got used to making mistakes, and learn from it. Pattern recognition is built. Like I was born with that. I think you can learn it. I definitely think it's learnable, but I will admit that that's just a gift that I was given. Combined with, not being afraid to make mistakes. Then I would also say, and you're going to laugh at this one and smile, recognition. I've always had a very clear point of view, and I've been both, very determined with it. Like, you're not going to wrestle it from me, but also not overly tied to it. So it was really easy many times. You remember some of the conversations where it was like, Doug, are you taking it in the right direction? It is like, yeah, it's a great idea, but is it real? And it's like, no, man, I'm going to, but it also, like, I was willing to ebb and flow. And the way I kind of characterize that is be committed to your destination, be really, really flexible on the journey. And another place which actually gets into a lot of, I have a lot of debate with some people on this, is we specifically don't focus on verticals. And one of the reasons, and I say that as a competitive advantage, and competitive advantage is the wrong thing. That's a customer advantage, because we see things in other places that theoretically have nothing to do with your business. And I think that one of the things that creatives do well, and I think I'm a creative when it comes to process design. I'm not a creative when it comes to drawing. Is
Picasso is what you're saying,
right? Yeah, maybe I'm Picasso after the fact, because it's all abstract.
Sure.
Maybe I'm Picasso in his abstract period.
Okay.
The problem is I thought I'm actually drawing something specific. They all get inspiration from things that have nothing to do with their craft, with their thing. And so working with a distribution company, seeing, wait, the problem that this tech company is having is it's just like the problem. And this is what we did there. And so, by the way, I was going to circle back to my superpower of connecting the unconnectable or the disconnected, is I believe firmly that I can explain anything that happens in life as long as you let me refer to baseball or poker.
So that in its own way, that's a superpower itself, which is the relatability of what you're describing. What's interesting, jokes aside, though, is that you're bridging a unique gap that I think business owners, founders, people that are frankly looking to be, helped, are typically most challenged by, which is that they haven't done the thing before. So you're describing, when you talk about this matching the unmatchable, and seriously, the next question I asked was like, what are you personally most passionate about? And you had said addressing wicked problems that have people stumped and free up creativity and action. Those two things actually, in terms of an answer, I'm not putting words in your mouth, but I think they actually are interconnected with this inherent power you're describing, right? You're talking about using your experience, using your time and seat, working with other customers, using all of this context to bring it back to, this is how we can help you today. That creativity inherently lies in experience.
Well, and there's an interesting thing, and I will find who wrote the article or the book. It's something around leading innovation. Or I'm sorry, it was managing innovation, not leading innovation. And so much of the research on management is built on the basis of experience, right? And what happens in innovative environments is, and there are definitely places where I can help because I have experience. I've seen this in other places. I've done it. I've written the review. But if you really think about the things that move organizations forward today, no one has experience. It is new, right? And so how do you bring experience to something that hasn't been done before? That's where if you throw me into any situation, I've never been in a situation as a conscious person, meaning the awareness, and I can remember, where I felt like, oh my God, I've never been here before. Because whatever it is, there's something that I'm able to quickly go, well, it's kind of like this, but it's different than that. And, and I did some bad, crazy, stupid stuff early when I didn't have it, so that experience that lets me interpret is where that experience comes in. So it is the experience of leading through things where we haven't dealt with this problem before, which gets into what is a wicked problem. I don't know if you knew what a wicked problem is, but it's actually
I want to hear about it. Yeah, tell me about it. I feel like it's in a dictionary somewhere, urban or otherwise, that is very clearly defined. So I'm ready. Give me the definition.
A wicked problem is a problem that doesn't have a solution.
Okay.
Poverty is a wicked problem.
And you're talking about the ability to then go and use, perhaps in the client work you're describing, that methodology of, well, I haven't been there. I'll pioneer an opportunity in terms of how to look at it differently. And while I may not solve the root problem, perhaps, or maybe I'm being assumptive here, but the root problem, I may lead to a better solution in the long term in terms of driving away from that challenge.
Actually, I'll probably get closer to solving the root problem, and I won't be solving necessarily the symptomatic problem. So, I used to say there's no such thing as right or wrong when it comes to growing a business. I realize that's not true. There are wrong decisions. The thing is, when you've got a decision or a path that you have to take, and there's right and wrong, there's a wrong path. And certainly if there's a right path, a right decision, most people don't have problems with that. Should I steal from my customer? No, that would be bad, right? You don't need whatever we're talking about there. Every other decision, like infinity exists between 0 and 1, right? There is no right way. And again, there are probably some wrong ways. My favorite example of this is Joe Madden. Remember, baseball or poker, I'll connect everything. Joe Madden, when he led the Cubs to their first World Series win in 106 years, his mantra, what he said as the players were leaving from the clubhouse to go out on the field, he said, let's try not to suck today. What I say, one of our mantras in, at Imagine is let's try to suck less today. Right? If we can just suck a little bit less, if we can be a little bit less wrong, then we're going to make progress. At the end of the day, everything that matters comes down to a trade-off. Right? If I go this route, I get this, I don't get that. This has advantages, those are the disadvantages. Right? What are we getting to? So that's what a wicked problem is. A wicked problem is one where whatever step you take, it helps in some areas, it hurts in other things. Different people have different judgments. How do we get that clarity? And again, it comes back to that. What is that clarity of destination so that we can begin to manage the trade-offs and iterate and find our way there?